King Henry VIII of England is one of history's most well-known rulers. Born on June 28, 1491, in Greenwich Palace near London. He was the second son of King Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. Henry VII, the founder of the Tudor dynasty, ended the Wars of the Roses and united the houses of Lancaster and York. This made Henry's birth a symbol of hope for the future of England. As the younger son, Henry was not expected to become king. His older brother, Arthur, was the heir to the throne, while Henry was prepared for a life as a nobleman. Henry's upbringing was rich in education and culture, with tutors teaching him subjects such as grammar, history, arithmetic, and several languages, including French and Latin. He was also skilled in sports and music, earning admiration for his intelligence and charm. The death of his brother Arthur in 1502 changed everything for young Henry. He became the next in line to the throne and was groomed to take on the role of king. Henry VII began preparing him for leadership, and this training would shape him into the ambitious and sometimes controversial ruler he became. King Henry VIII's life was a mix of triumphs and challenges, leaving behind a legacy that still sparks debate. Was he a great leader or a tyrant? History continues to explore his fascinating story. Henry VIII was born into a royal family that had just secured its place on the throne after years of civil war. His early life was spent at Eltham Palace, where he was raised with care by his mother, Elizabeth of York, and a team of skilled tutors. Although he was not initially the heir to the throne, Henry received a well-rounded education, preparing him for a future of leadership and responsibility. From a young age, Henry showed a natural aptitude for learning. His tutors taught him various subjects, including history, philosophy, rhetoric, and arithmetic. He also studied multiple languages, such as French, Spanish, Italian, Latin, and Greek, which later proved valuable in his diplomatic dealings. In addition to academics, Henry excelled in music and sports. He played several instruments, composed music, and participated in activities like hunting, archery, and jousting. Henry's personality during his youth was shaped by his family environment. Surrounded by his mother, sisters, and grandmother, he grew up as the center of their affection. Historians suggest this upbringing contributed to his charm and love for romance, as well as his difficulty accepting opposition. His early relationships and experiences left lasting impressions that influenced his reign as king. Henry's childhood was filled with privilege and opportunity, but it was also marked by tragedy. The sudden death of his brother Arthur in 1502 thrust Henry into the role of heir. His father, King Henry VII, took direct control of his education, focusing on preparing him to rule. This rigorous training, combined with his natural charisma, set the stage for Henry to become one of England's most memorable kings. The death of Arthur, Prince of Wales, in 1502 was a pivotal moment in the life of Henry VIII. As Arthur was the older brother and heir to the throne, his unexpected passing left the Tudor dynasty in a fragile position. This event changed Henry's life dramatically, thrusting him into the role of heir at just 10 years old. Arthur's death created uncertainty about the future of the Tudor rule. King Henry VII, who had seized the throne after years of conflict during the Wars of the Roses, was determined to secure a smooth transition of power. He turned his attention to Henry, ensuring his younger son received an education and training befitting a future monarch. Henry was soon given important titles, including Prince of Wales, and began taking on ceremonial responsibilities. This shift in Henry's role also strained his relationship with his father. Henry VII, known for his cautious and controlling nature, imposed strict restrictions on his son, particularly in activities like jousting, which were deemed too dangerous for the young heir. These limitations embarrassed Henry, who longed to demonstrate his courage and strength like his peers. Arthur's death set the tone for Henry's reign, as the need to secure the Tudor lineage became an obsession. It also introduced the young prince to the weight of royal responsibility, shaping his ambitions and influencing the decisions he would make as king. When King Henry VII passed away in April 1509, 17-year-old Henry ascended the throne as King Henry VIII. His rise to power was met with widespread excitement and optimism across England. Young, athletic, and charismatic, Henry embodied the hope of a golden era for the nation. He wasted no time stepping into his role as king, taking decisive actions to solidify his reign. One of Henry's first major decisions was to marry Catherine of Aragon, his brother Arthur's widow. Catherine was the daughter of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain, and her marriage to Henry strengthened the alliance between England and Spain. Although canon law initially posed obstacles to the union, a special papal dispensation allowed the marriage to proceed. On June 11, 1509, Henry and Catherine were wed in a private ceremony, followed by their coronation as King and Queen of England 2 weeks later. Their marriage began with mutual respect and affection. Catherine was admired for her intelligence, piety, and diplomatic skills, and Henry viewed her as a capable partner in governing England. In the early years of their union, they worked closely together, with Catherine even serving as regent when Henry went to war. The beginning of Henry's reign was characterized by grandeur and ambition. He sought to distinguish himself from his father by spending lavishly on court festivities, clothing, and tournaments. This period of hope and unity, however, would eventually give way to challenges, as Henry's desire for a male heir placed immense strain on their marriage. The early years of King Henry VIII's reign were marked by energy, extravagance, and ambition. Determined to break away from the cautious and frugal legacy of his father, Henry sought to establish a vibrant and powerful image of the monarchy. His court became a hub of cultural and political activity, filled with lavish banquets, tournaments, and performances that reflected the young king's vision of a dynamic England. Henry was keen to demonstrate his strength as a ruler, both at home and abroad. He invested heavily in military campaigns, including an invasion of France in 1513, where he achieved notable victories such as the Battle of the Spurs. These efforts reinforced Henry's desire to emulate the warrior kings of the medieval past, and they gained him respect as a leader on the international stage. At home, Henry relied on capable advisors such as Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, who played a pivotal role in managing the kingdom's affairs. Wolsey's influence helped to streamline the administration of the government, enabling Henry to focus on his broader ambitions. The king also made gestures to win the favor of his subjects, such as forgiving debts and hosting grand public events. During this time, Henry and Catherine of Aragon appeared as a united front, with Catherine's support contributing to the strength of the monarchy. However, the king's focus on securing his dynasty through a male heir would soon begin to dominate his priorities and create challenges for the young monarch. As King Henry VIII's reign progressed, his determination to secure the Tudor dynasty became a central focus of his life. Although his marriage to Catherine of Aragon began with affection and cooperation, their inability to produce a surviving male heir placed a growing strain on their relationship and on Henry's perception of his legacy. Catherine's early pregnancies ended in heartbreak. She suffered multiple miscarriages and stillbirths, and while she gave birth to several children, only one Princess Mary, born in 1516, survived infancy. While Mary's birth brought joy and hope, the lack of a male heir weighed heavily on Henry. In 16th century England, the prevailing belief was that a strong, stable monarchy required a male successor to avoid political unrest and disputes over the throne. Despite these struggles, Henry initially showed patience and understanding toward Catherine. Her ability to conceive was seen as a positive sign that a son could eventually be born. However, as Catherine grew older and her chances of bearing more children diminished, Henry's frustrations grew. He began to view their marriage as a failure to fulfill his dynastic ambitions. By the mid-1520s, Henry's quest for a male heir became an obsession. His attention turned to Anne Boleyn, a young, charismatic lady in waiting at court. This relationship would set the stage for one of the most dramatic and transformative periods in English history, as Henry sought to annul his marriage to Catherine and pursue a new path that would reshape the religious and political landscape of the nation. King Henry VIII's quest for a male heir brought about one of the most profound changes in English history, the English Reformation. By the mid-1520s, Henry was desperate to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon and marry Anne Boleyn. However, the Roman Catholic Church, led by Pope Clement VII, refused his request, citing the validity of his marriage to Catherine. This rejection marked the beginning of Henry's break from the Church. Henry and his advisors, including Thomas Cranmer and Thomas Cromwell, began seeking alternatives to the Pope's authority. They developed the argument that the King of England should hold supreme authority over both secular and religious matters within his own realm. This idea culminated in the Act of Supremacy in 1534, which declared Henry the supreme head of the Church of England. This act effectively severed ties with the Pope and established an independent English church. The Reformation brought significant changes to religious practices and institutions in England. Monasteries were dissolved, and their wealth was confiscated by the crown, leading to a redistribution of land and resources. While Henry remained a doctrinal Catholic, the break from Rome allowed for the introduction of Protestant ideas, including the translation of the Bible into English. This period of reform and upheaval reshaped England's religious and political landscape. The Reformation was not only a personal quest for Henry, but also a pivotal moment in the nation's history, laying the groundwork for future shifts in religious and governmental power. King Henry VIII's later years were marked by a series of marriages and domestic decisions that further defined his legacy. After his dramatic break from the Roman Catholic Church, Henry married Anne Boleyn in 1533. Anne's inability to produce a male heir and accusations of infidelity led to her execution in 1536. Henry quickly married Jane Seymour, who gave birth to his only legitimate son, Edward, but tragically died shortly after childbirth. In an effort to secure political alliances, Henry's fourth marriage was to Anne of Cleves in 1540. This union ended in annulment within 6 months due to Henry's dissatisfaction. His fifth marriage to Catherine Howard ended in scandal, as she was executed in 1542 for alleged infidelity. Finally, Henry married Catherine Parr, a supportive and educated companion who helped reconcile him with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, securing their places in the line of succession. Domestically, Henry's policies reshaped England. The dissolution of monasteries redistributed wealth and land, strengthening the crown's finances. However, these actions caused unrest, such as the Pilgrimage of Grace, a large-scale rebellion in northern England. Henry also invested heavily in military defenses, building fortifications and expanding the navy, ensuring England's protection from foreign threats. These marriages and domestic policies reflected Henry's priorities, securing his dynasty, maintaining power, and solidifying England's position as a formidable kingdom. King Henry VIII's reign was defined by his ambitions for military glory and international influence. From the beginning, he sought to assert England's power on the European stage through military campaigns and diplomatic efforts. His focus on warfare often mirrored the actions of medieval kings, as he aimed to emulate the legendary victories of predecessors like King Henry V. Henry's early military successes included the Battle of the Spurs in 1513, where English forces triumphed over the French. This was part of his larger campaign to reclaim territory in France, though these gains were mostly symbolic. His later efforts to wage war on France in the 1540s resulted in the capture of Boulogne, but at great financial cost to England. Henry also pursued diplomatic relationships with other European powers. His marriage to Catherine of Aragon reinforced ties with Spain, while the Field of the Cloth of Gold in 1520 symbolized a brief alliance with France. These events showcased England's wealth and influence, but often failed to result in long-term political stability. Beyond France, Henry's ambitions extended to Scotland, where he aimed to unify the two nations through the marriage of his son Edward to Mary, Queen of Scots. Known as the Rough Wooing, this campaign ultimately failed and left a legacy of animosity between the two kingdoms. Henry's wars and diplomacy were driven by his desire for prestige and dominance. While these efforts bolstered his image as a warrior king, they often drained the crown's resources and placed financial strain on the kingdom. The final years of King Henry VIII's life were overshadowed by his declining health and the consequences of his earlier decisions. A jousting accident in 1536 left Henry with a severely injured leg that never fully healed, leading to chronic pain and recurring infections. As his health worsened, Henry became increasingly overweight and irritable, relying on medical treatments that were often ineffective by modern standards. Despite his physical struggles, Henry continued to govern and pursue his ambitions. He focused on strengthening England's defenses, commissioning fortifications along the coast, and expanding the navy. These efforts reflected his concern about potential invasions, particularly from France and Spain. Henry's final marriage to Catherine Parr brought stability to his personal life. Catherine, a devout Protestant and an educated woman, played a crucial role in mending Henry's relationships with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, and helping to secure their places in the line of succession. This act of reconciliation ensured that Henry's legacy would extend beyond his son, Edward. In January 1547, Henry's health rapidly declined. Surrounded by his advisors and clergy, he passed away on January 28 at the age of 55. His son, Edward VI, ascended the throne at just 9 years old, leaving the kingdom in the hands of regents. Henry's final years were marked by the contrast between his earlier triumphs and the challenges of age, health, and the lasting impact of his rule. King Henry VIII left a legacy that continues to fascinate historians and the public alike. His reign was a turning point in English history, marked by the establishment of the Church of England, the dissolution of monasteries, and significant changes in the nation's political and religious structures. Henry's actions paved the way for the English Reformation, reshaping the country's identity and influencing its future as a Protestant nation. Henry's 6 marriages are among the most memorable aspects of his life, reflecting his relentless pursuit of a male heir and the drama that defined his personal relationships. His ambitious domestic and foreign policies showcased his desire to elevate England's status on the European stage, even as they placed financial strain on the crown. While Henry achieved many of his goals, his reign also left a legacy of controversy. His break from the Roman Catholic Church, his treatment of his wives, and his harsh handling of dissent have led some to view him as a tyrant. Others, however, see him as a visionary leader who strengthened England's position and laid the groundwork for future monarchs like Queen Elizabeth I. What do you think of King Henry VIII? Was he a brutal tyrant, or were his actions justified in the context of his time? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more historical content. Thank you very much for watching.